name is Kianna Thomas, and before I jump into the topic of this video, I just wanted to take some time for you guys to get to know who I am and what the purpose of this channel is. So I've always been very passionate about social justice issues, which is one of the biggest reasons why I actually want to become either a civil rights or civil litigation attorney, because I just feel like my purpose is to defend those who cannot defend themselves and just being an advocate in society. And so whenever there are social justice issues happening in this country, 10 out of 10 times I am posting about it either on my Instagram or private story. And so recently, my good friend Emma actually slid up on my private story and she was like, yo, Kianna, you need to start some YouTube channel or some type of platform because your voice is too powerful for a private story. And so thanks to Emma, I decided to start this YouTube channel to just break down social justice issues happening in this country and world. And then at the end of each segment, I will discuss with you guys how you guys can help that certain issue. My goal is to raise awareness on social justice issues that are usually silenced or not fully understood by people. And I'm doing this because I believe in my generation, and I know that there are a lot of people who do want to start their journey of activism but don't know where to start. And I used to be one of those people, and so I would always tell myself, you know, Kianna, when you're an attorney, you'll change laws, you'll defend people, and you'll make the world a better place. And then I was just like, why start later when I can just start now? So due to current events, I decided that the best topic to start with is police brutality. What is it? Why is it happening? And does the government really support it? So what really is police brutality? Police brutality is actually a civil rights violation of Section 1983 litigation of Title 42 of the United States Code, which basically makes it unlawful for anyone acting under the authority of state law to deprive another person of his or her rights under the Constitution or federal law. This could be false arrest or excessive force that can lead to physical or mental injury, property damage, verbal harassment, and the one that we unfortunately mostly know, death. To better understand police brutality, we need to rewind to the origin of law enforcement. The first police force was actually created here in Boston in 1838. Now, if you know your geography, then you know that Massachusetts is actually a northern state, and in the South, in order to strengthen the institution of slavery, law enforcement was actually created to enforce slavery by deploying slave patrols who recaptured freed and runaway slaves. After slavery was abolished in 1865, slave patrols continued to maintain racial oppression by enforcing segregation and controlling black sharecroppers. Along with the slave abolition in 1865, KKK was also created. Now, rather than protecting their citizens, slave patrols actually protected and aided KKK. And so over time, KKK and slave patrols merged. Now, obviously today, KKK and law enforcement are two vastly different groups. However, in the late 1800s, KKK members did join law enforcement, and the law enforcement did join KKK. And together they sanctioned Jim Crow laws that enforced racial segregation. Now that we know the history of the origin of law enforcement, I think it's very evident to say that historically, law enforcement was created to protect institutionalized racism. So are law enforcement officers actually being held responsible for their actions? Let's talk about the Law Enforcement Officers' Bill of Rights. This Bill of Rights was actually passed by 16 states, which include California, Delaware, Florida, Illinois, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Minnesota, Nevada, New Mexico, Rhode Island, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wisconsin. Basically, this provides extra protection to cops during investigations for excessive force, or how I like to call it, police brutality. This also applies to prison and jail guards, which is why there are so many cases of maltreatment towards prisoners that are just swept under the rug. In states that do have the Officers' Bill of Rights, after a complaint is filed against a police officer, the leadership department actually provides the name of the complainant and their testimony before that police officer is even interrogated. And during interrogation, police officers are given special treatment as they're interrogated for reasonable periods, which basically means that they're interrogated for 3 hours at a time with rest periods in between. On top of this, if all charges are dropped against that police officer, the police department cannot even acknowledge the fact that an officer was charged for excessive force. And if that officer does get suspended, they still receive full pay with benefits until the case is solved. And if any of those rights are violated, all charges are dropped against that police officer. So basically, this Bill of Rights is a way to get cops off the hook. I will be linking all the information of the Officers' Bill of Rights down in the description box if you guys want to get to know more about it. What is even more frustrating is the lack of reliable data sets that we have on police misconduct due to the fact that many cities and district attorneys continue to silence many people by paying out millions of dollars to settle lawsuits against officers who have been sued repeatedly. Philip M. Stinson, who currently researches at Bowling Green University, has found that only 106 police officers have been charged with murder nationwide, even though that since 2005, 13,000 people have been shot and killed by the police. That is 0.008% of officers who have been charged with murder after killing someone. Out of those 106, only 4 of those officers so far have been convicted of murder. The other 33 were convicted of lesser charges. Now let's talk about qualified immunity. Qualified immunity is a legal doctrine in the United States that protects government officials from being held liable for their actions while acting within their official capacity. This doctrine also protects government officials even if they violate someone's constitutional rights. Currently in the justice system, this is used to shield officers from excessive force lawsuits and civil rights violation. For example, in the Corbett v. Vickers case, a police officer was able to walk freely with no conviction after murdering a 10-year-old in their own backyard. In the courtroom, qualified immunity forces defense attorneys like Ben Crump, who is currently defending George Floyd, to find an already existing case in the 8th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, holding that a law enforcement officer cannot kneel on a suspect's neck, especially one that is unresisting and that officer is ignoring their pleas for help. Basically, in legal terms, the plaintiff would have to find a highly particular legal precedent for their case. Fortunately, the Supreme Court is actually currently reviewing qualified immunity, so keep your eye out in the news to hear what their final decision is. I will be linking more information on qualified immunity down in the description box. Now let's talk about Code Blue / the Blue Wall of Silence. Basically, this is a rule amongst police officers to not snitch on each other. This means to not report on a colleague's errors, misconduct, or crime, including excessive force. I mean, who knows? Had there been no video footage, would those 3 officers speak out against Derek Chauvin and what they did to George Floyd? Strangely, there really aren't a lot of articles on Code Blue, but now that we are seeing body cam footage released from a year ago about how multiple officers murdered Javier Ambler on March 28th, 2019, while he was screaming, "I have congestive heart failure and I can't breathe." He was murdered by multiple cops, and we are now seeing the body cam footage. Just imagine the amount of people who have been murdered by cops, but we don't know about it simply because of no body cam footage and because officers follow Code Blue. So why is this happening? Not all police misconduct is actually illegal, especially if a police officer claims that they genuinely feared for their life. Also, the justice system does protect police officers, as prosecutors work very closely with police departments and do not want to jeopardize their relationships. This could be why it took so long for prosecutor Michael Freeman to charge even 1 officer during the George Floyd case. Also, juries are more likely to believe law enforcement over civilians. This could be why Jason Stockley walks freely after murdering Lamar Anthony Smith, and Geronimo Yanez walks freely after murdering Philando Castile in his car in front of his own 4-year-old daughter. There are so many areas in the justice system that we need to reform in order to protect us from those who are supposed to protect us. Who are we supposed to call when the ones harming us are police officers? So what can we do? Email Center for Justice at cja.org and demand a set list forth by the NAACP. The script will be linked down in the description box. Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley introduced legislation to condemn police brutality and combat racially biased policing tactics. Call your local representatives and urge them to support this in order for Congress to pass it, hopefully federally, and not just in Massachusetts. You can donate to ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union. The link will be down in the description box. You can create organizations in your community, like your town name against racism, or start school clubs like Diversity Awareness Club. Educate yourself on these issues and spread awareness by maybe even sharing this video. And most importantly, go on this website, which will also be down in the description box, and sign the petitions, text and call the numbers provided, and donate to the links provided in this website. Together we can do this. Together we can bring justice and create a system that advocates for everyone. Unity makes strength. And remember, if you're not a part of the solution, you're contributing to the problem.